The Reject Assignment. The Unwanted Command. Captain Elena Vasquez stood before the massive viewport of Starbase Meridian, watching the sleek alien vessels drift past like silver ghosts in the void. Each ship represented a different member species of the Galactic Confederation, their hulls gleaming with advanced armor plating and energy shields that shimmered like soap bubbles. Then her eyes fell on the ship that would be her new command, and her heart sank. The UES Horizon looked like someone had built a spaceship out of spare parts found in a junkyard. Its hull was a patchwork of different metals, welded together with seams that were visible even from this distance. Where other ships had smooth, organic curves, the Horizon had sharp angles and awkward bulges where systems had been retrofitted without regard for aesthetics. 3 of its 4 engine nacelles were clearly replacement parts, each one a different size and color from the others. "That's really our ship?" Dr. Marcus Chen asked, joining Elena at the viewport. The ship's new chief engineer was a compact man with calloused hands and an eternal optimism that Elena found both endearing and occasionally annoying. His dark eyes studied the horizon with the same intensity he usually reserved for complex technical problems. "According to the transfer orders, yes," Elena replied, trying to keep the disappointment out of her voice. 6 months ago, she had been the youngest captain in Earth's colonial navy, commanding a state-of-the-art destroyer that could outrun and outfight anything in human space. Then came humanity's acceptance into the Galactic Confederation, and suddenly her impressive resume meant nothing. The aliens had their own ships, their own technology, their own ways of doing things. Lieutenant Sarah Kim approached them with quick, precise steps that spoke of her military training. The pilot was young, barely out of the academy, with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. She carried a data pad filled with technical specifications that she'd been studying since their assignment came through. "I've been reviewing the ship's capabilities," she said, "or what's left of them." "How bad is it?" Elena asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. "The hyperdrive is 3 generations out of date. The weapons systems are projectile-based rather than energy weapons. The hull plating is standard titanium steel composite, not the adaptive smart metal that most Confederation ships use. And the computer systems." Sarah paused, scrolling through more data. "Let's just say my personal tablet has more processing power than the main computer." Commander Alex Torres joined their small group, his expression as grim as Elena felt. The tactical officer was a veteran of the border wars, a solid man with graying temples and scars on his hands from his time in the engineering corps before switching to weapons and tactics. "I've been talking to some of the other crews," he said quietly. "Word is that the Alterians specifically requested that humanity be given this ship." The Alterian Gambit. Elena wasn't surprised. The Alterians had been the most vocal opponents of humanity's admission to the Confederation. They were an ancient species, tall and graceful with pale blue skin and eyes like chips of ice. They had been exploring the galaxy when humans were still discovering fire, and they never let anyone forget it. "Ambassador Calith wants to see you before you depart," Alex continued. "Docking Bay 12. Elena nodded and headed for the lift. The others followed without being asked, a show of solidarity that she appreciated more than she could express. They rode down in silence, each lost in their own thoughts about the mission ahead. Ambassador Calith was waiting for them in the docking bay, his tall frame draped in robes that seemed to flow like liquid starlight. 2 other Alterians flanked him, their expressions unreadable. Behind them, the Horizon squatted on its landing struts like a mechanical toad among swans. "Captain Vasquez," Calith said, his voice carrying the musical quality that all Alterians possessed. "I trust you find your new command adequate." "It will serve," Elena replied carefully. Diplomacy had never been her strong suit, but she knew better than to insult a Confederation ambassador. Calith's thin lips curved in what might have been a smile. How refreshingly direct. "Your species has such practical attitudes." He gestured toward the Horizon. "This vessel was selected specifically for humanity's needs. Simple systems, easy to understand, well within your technological comfort zone. Marcus stepped forward slightly. With respect, Ambassador, some of these systems are older than I am. The power distribution network alone looks like it was designed by committee. And yet it functions, Calith replied smoothly. Reliability over sophistication, is that not the human way? Your species built its first space stations out of metal tubes and chemical rockets. This ship operates on similar principles. Basic, but effective. Delina felt her temper rising, but kept her voice level. What exactly is our mission? Caliph handed her a data crystal. Patrol Sector 77 Delta. It's a quiet region, well away from major trade routes. Perfect for a new crew to learn Confederation protocols without the pressure of high-stakes operations. Into the dead zone. Sarah took the horizon out of dock with surprising grace, despite the ship's ungainly appearance. The bridge was cramped compared to modern vessels, with barely enough room for the 4 crew members and their stations. The captain's chair was a simple metal seat with worn padding, nothing like the sophisticated command centers Elena had grown accustomed to. Hyperdrive charging, Marcus reported from his engineering station. It's going to take longer than usual. This old drive needs time to build up sufficient power. How much longer? Elena asked. About twice as long as a modern ship, he replied with a grimace. But the good news is that once we're in hyperspace, we should be just as fast as anyone else. The jump to hyperspace was rough, the ship shuddering and groaning as reality twisted around them. Delina gripped her armrests and wondered if this was how test pilots felt in humanity's early days of space exploration, never quite sure if the next system failure would be their last. Sector 77 Delta was as empty as promised. It was a region of space between star systems, marked by nothing but cosmic dust and the occasional asteroid. Most captains would have found it boring. Elena found it insulting. They were being sent to patrol nothing, to stay out of the way while real ships handled real missions. Captain, Sarah called from her station. I'm picking up something odd on the long-range sensors. Elena moved to look over the pilot's shoulder at the display. There was indeed something there. A faint energy signature that didn't match anything in their databases. What do you think it is? Unknown, Sarah replied. But it's not natural. The energy pattern is too regular, too structured. Alex leaned over from his tactical station. Could be a derelict ship, or maybe a probe from another species. Let's take a look, Elena decided. It's not like we have anything else to do out here. The ancient discovery. The source of the energy signature was unlike anything Elena had ever seen. It wasn't a ship in any conventional sense, but rather a structure that seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially somewhere else entirely. Parts of it flickered in and out of visibility, as if it couldn't quite decide whether it wanted to be real or not. The energy readings are off the charts, Marcus reported, his voice filled with excitement. This thing is generating power on a scale I've never seen before, but it's not fusion, not antimatter, not anything I recognize. How old is it? Elena asked. Hard to say, but the metal composition. Captain, this thing predates the Confederation by millions of years. Maybe tens of millions. Sarah brought the horizon into a close orbit around the strange structure. Through the viewport, they could see that it was covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. The whole material appeared to be some kind of crystalline metal that had never been seen before. Captain, Alex said urgently, new contacts on sensors. 3 ships, approaching fast. Elena's blood chilled as she saw the approaching vessels. They were sleek and black, with hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. She recognized the design from intelligence briefings. Void Syndicate raiders, one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the galaxy. They're hailing us, Sarah reported. The main screen flickered to life, showing a figure in dark armor with a helmet that completely concealed their features. Human vessel, the figure said in a voice distorted by electronic filters. You will withdraw immediately from this location. This is Captain Vasquez of the United Earth Ship Horizon, Elena replied. You are in violation of Confederation space law. Stand down and prepare to be boarded. The figure's laugh was harsh and mechanical. Foolish humans, you have no idea what you have stumbled upon. That structure contains technology that could reshape the galaxy. It belongs to those with the power to use it, not to newcomers playing at being soldiers. The transmission cut off, and immediately the 3 Syndicate ships opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space toward the horizon, but Sarah was already moving, throwing the ship into a series of evasive maneuvers that would have been impossible for a larger, more sophisticated vessel. Human ingenuity. Return fire, Elena ordered. Alex triggered the Horizon's weapons, old-fashioned projectile cannons that fired dense metal slugs at relativistic speeds. The Syndicate ships had shields designed to deflect energy weapons, but they had no defense against solid projectiles. The first volley punched through their shields and gouged deep holes in their hulls. Impossible, came the distorted voice over the comm. No one uses kinetic weapons anymore. We do, Elena said grimly. Alex, target their engines. Sarah, get us closer to that structure. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recent galactic history. The Syndicate ships were faster and more maneuverable, but their tactics were designed for fighting other energy weapon vessels. They kept trying to maintain distance and rely on their shields, not understanding that the Horizon's primitive weapons could punch through their defenses at any range. Marcus worked frantically at his station, rerouting power and boosting the ship's systems beyond their rated capacity. Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildups in that structure. Our weapons fire is triggering some kind of response. As if summoned by his words, the ancient structure began to glow with inner light. The symbols on its hull blazed with power, and space itself seemed to ripple around it. One of the Syndicate ships, caught in the expanding energy field, simply changed. Its hull reformed into something that was no longer quite a ship, its weapons transforming into structures that served some incomprehensible purpose. What the hell was that? Sarah breathed. Elena stared at the transformed Syndicate vessel, her mind racing. The ancient structure wasn't just a ship or a weapon. It was something far more powerful. It was a device that could rewrite reality itself, reshaping matter and energy according to some alien will. And somehow, their simple, outdated ship was the key to unlocking its secrets. Part 2. The Reality Breach. Crossing the Threshold. The remaining 2 Syndicate ships retreated to a safe distance, their commanders clearly as shaken as Elena's crew by what they had witnessed. The transformed vessel hung in space like a piece of abstract art, its new form pulsing with energies that made their instruments scream warnings. Captain, Marcus called out, his voice tight with excitement and fear. I'm detecting an opening in the structure. It's responding to our ship specifically. Elena studied the readings on her tactical display. The ancient structure was indeed opening, revealing an interior space that seemed impossibly vast for its external dimensions. More troubling, her instruments indicated that the space inside didn't follow normal physical laws. Sensors showed corridors that folded back on themselves, chambers that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Syndicate ships are holding position, Alex reported. They're not approaching, but they're not leaving either. They're waiting, Elena realized. They want us to go in first, to spring whatever traps might be waiting. Sarah looked up from her pilot's station. Captain, I'm detecting something else. There are more ships approaching. A lot more. Looks like a full Alterian battle group, led by a heavy cruiser. Elena's stomach dropped. Ambassador Caliph had clearly been monitoring their mission more closely than he had let on. The Alterians were coming to claim whatever secrets the ancient structure contained, and they wouldn't hesitate to destroy the Horizon to get them. How long until they arrive? Elena asked. 12 minutes at their current speed, Sarah replied. Elena made a decision that would have been called reckless by any reasonable commander. Take us inside the structure, into the unknown. The Horizon passed through the opening like a submarine diving beneath the surface of an alien ocean. The moment they crossed the threshold, Alina felt something change. The air itself seemed different, charged with potential energy that made her skin tingle. The bridge lights flickered, and for a moment, she could have sworn she saw her instruments displaying impossible readings. Negative energy, inverted time, distances measured in units that didn't exist. Systems are strange, Marcus reported, his usually steady voice uncertain. Everything is functioning, but the readouts don't make sense. According to these instruments, we're moving forward and backward through time simultaneously. The interior of the structure was vast beyond comprehension. Corridors stretched in directions that shouldn't have existed, lined with the same crystalline metal as the exterior. Everywhere they looked, symbols pulsed with soft light, and Alina had the unsettling feeling that they were being washed. There, Sarah pointed to a section of the corridor ahead. Something's different about that area. She was right. One section of the wall was covered in symbols that seemed somehow more active than the others. As they approached, the symbols began to rearrange themselves, forming patterns that almost looked like, "It's trying to communicate," Alina breathed. Marcus was scanning the wall with every instrument he had. "Captain, the energy signature here is incredible. It's like the wall is a computer, but not digital. It's processing information on a quantum level, maybe even deeper than that." Alina approached the wall and placed her hand on its surface. The moment her skin made contact with the crystalline metal, images flooded her mind. She saw a civilization that had existed millions of years ago, beings of pure thought who had transcended physical form. They had built this structure not as a ship or a weapon, but as a tool for reshaping reality itself. And they had been waiting for someone like humanity to find it. The test of worthiness. The images showed her the truth. The ancient race had foreseen their own extinction, but they had also seen the potential for younger races to inherit their legacy. The structure was a test, designed to identify species that possessed the right combination of traits: creativity, adaptability, and the courage to face the unknown with inferior tools. The Alterians, for all their advanced technology, would have failed the test. Their ships were too sophisticated, their thinking too rigid. They would have tried to interface with the structure using their advanced computers and energy weapons, triggering defensive systems that would have destroyed them. But the Horizon, with its simple systems and primitive weapons, had been the perfect key. Its basic technology couldn't interfere with the structure's delicate quantum processes, and its human crew had the adaptability to work with systems they didn't fully understand. Alina felt knowledge flowing into her mind, not just information, but understanding. She could see how the structure worked, how it could be used to reshape matter and energy on a galactic scale. The responsibility was staggering. "Captain," Alex's urgent voice snapped her back to the present. "The Alterian battle group has arrived. They're demanding we exit the structure immediately." Alina turned to see her crew watching her with concern. She realized she had been in contact with the wall for several minutes, though it had felt like hours. "How much do you trust me?" she asked them. Marcus grinned. "With my life, Captain. What do you need us to do?" "The Syndicate ships are still out there," Alina said. "And now we have the Alterians to deal with. They're both going to try to claim this technology for themselves." She looked at each of her crew members in turn. "This structure, it's not just a weapon or a tool. It's a responsibility. The power to reshape reality can't be allowed to fall into the wrong hands." Sarah nodded grimly. "So what's the plan?" Alina smiled, and for the first time since receiving command of the Horizon, she felt truly confident. "We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to improvise." The reality gambit. What followed was the most audacious plan in the history of space warfare. Using the knowledge she had gained from the structure, Alina began to understand how its reality-altering capabilities could be directed. The structure didn't just change matter and energy. It could rewrite the fundamental laws of physics in localized areas. "Marcus, I need you to link our ship's computer to the structure's control systems," Alina ordered. "Don't try to understand how it works. Just make the connection. That could fry every system we have, Marcus warned. Or it could give us capabilities that no one else in the galaxy possesses, Alina countered. Sometimes you have to risk everything to save everything. Marcus worked with the focused intensity that had made him one of Earth's best engineers. Within minutes, he had jury-rigged a connection between the Horizon's primitive computer and the structure's quantum processing system. The moment the link was established, Alina felt the ship change around her. The Horizon was no longer just a patched-together vessel, held together by determination and spare parts. It had become something new, something unprecedented. A ship that could exist in multiple realities simultaneously, that could fire weapons that didn't just destroy their targets, but rewrote them out of existence entirely. "Captain," Sarah said, her voice filled with awe. "Our sensors are showing impossible readings. According to this, we're in 17 different locations at once. And all of them are real," Alina confirmed. "We're not just in this structure anymore. We're connected to it, part of it. We can be wherever we need to be." The comm system crackled to life. "Human vessel," came Ambassador Calith's cold voice. "You will exit that structure immediately and surrender it to Confederation authority." Alina smiled. "Ambassador, I'm afraid I can't do that. This technology is too dangerous to be controlled by any one species or government." "Then you force me to take action," Calith replied. "All ships, open fire on the structure. If we cannot claim it, no one can have it." Rewriting the rules. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for generations to come. The combined firepower of an Alterian battle group and 3 Syndicate raiders focused on the ancient structure, enough energy to vaporize a small moon. The beams struck the crystalline hull and simply stopped. The structure absorbed the energy, converted it, and used it to strengthen its own defenses. But Alina wasn't content to merely defend. Through her connection to the structure, she reached out and touched the minds of every ship captain in the battle zone, human and alien alike. For a brief moment, they all shared her vision. A galaxy where different species worked together instead of fighting for dominance, where technology was used to build rather than destroy. "This is what the ancients wanted," Alina broadcasted to all ships. "Not for one race to dominate all others, but for all races to grow beyond the need for domination." She felt the structure responding to her will, its reality-altering capabilities reaching out to touch each ship in the battle zone. The weapons of the Alterian and Syndicate vessels didn't disappear or break down. They were simply changed. Energy cannons became tools for asteroid mining. Missile launchers transformed into systems for seeding new worlds with life. Ambassador Calith's voice crackled over the comm, filled with shock and fury. "What have you done?" "What needed to be done," Alina replied. "The galaxy doesn't need more weapons. It needs more hope." The structure began to move, not through space, but through reality itself. Alina felt it dispersing, spreading its influence across the galaxy in ways that would take decades to fully understand. Ships would find themselves capable of impossible maneuvers. Scientists would make discoveries that revolutionized their understanding of physics. Artists would create works that touched the very fabric of existence. And humanity, the newcomers who had been given the weakest ship in the fleet, would be remembered as the species that used that weakness to rewrite the rules of the galaxy itself. The New Horizon. As the ancient structure completed its transformation, the Horizon found itself back in normal space, looking like the same patched-together vessel it had always been. But Alina knew the truth. They had been changed by their experience, marked by contact with something greater than themselves. The Alterian battle group and Syndicate raiders were withdrawing, their commanders struggling to understand what had happened to their ships. Ambassador Calith's final transmission was brief and bitter. "This is not over, Captain Vasquez." Alina suspected he was right. But for now, the immediate crisis had passed. The ancient technology was beyond anyone's ability to control or exploit, integrated into the fundamental structure of reality itself. "Captain," Marcus said quietly, "what do we do now?" Alina looked around at her crew, her friends. and smiled. Now we go back to being a patrol ship in the middle of nowhere. Except now, nowhere is exactly where we need to be. Sarah brought up the navigation display. "Where to, Captain?" "Wherever the galaxy needs us," Elena replied. "After all, we've got the best ship in the fleet." They all looked around at the cramped bridge, the patched hull, the systems held together with hope and ingenuity. Then they started laughing, because they knew it was true. The Horizon might not be the fastest ship or the most heavily armed, but it was something more important. It was exactly what it needed to be, when it needed to be it. And in a galaxy full of possibilities, that was everything. The Horizon jumped to hyperspace, carrying its crew toward their next adventure. Behind them, space itself shimmered with new potential, and the galaxy would never be quite the same again. In the end, the Alterians had been right about one thing. They had given humanity exactly the ship it deserved. They just hadn't understood what that meant until it was too late to change their minds. The weakest ship in the fleet had become the most important, and its crew of rejects had rewritten the rules of reality itself. It was, Elena thought with satisfaction, a very human thing to do.